how does perfect parenting look like?
I don't believe there's anything as perfect parenting. You do the best you possibly can given your circumstances for your children.
Hello, Dr. Sabharwal. How are you doing today? Welcome to our podcast number 9.
Excellent, Vrind. Welcome to you as well.
Thank you so much. Today, I think, I have stories all the time, as I was sharing last week. I had a couple of students that had come from abroad, had reached out to me, and they we watched your podcast on international students and immigration, and they said that we absolutely loved your perspective, and thanks for standing up for us. I'm like, I was just saying what's right. And they're like, we need more people like you with the thought process. I'm not even, tooting my own horn. I'm so happy. The purpose here is I'm so happy that people are reciprocating to the message really well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, the message is coming from the heart.
Yes.
It's coming based on the interactions we had with individuals and based on facts.
Yes. Today's podcast, we do podcasts all the time. Today's podcast, I want to do something different. As I feel like a lot of youngsters are tuning in, watching the podcast, I want to do today's podcast on parenting. What do you think about that?
I think that's a wonderful topic.
Awesome. So, because I usually quiz you with a question, but I'm like, this time let's just give you the topic that I want to discuss, and then just jump in. I feel the reason why I want to do parenting today, is I feel that parents go through a lot of sacrifices in upbringing their children, raising their children. On the contrary, there's also parents, because of the time discrepancies with their children, work hours, they don't get a chance to provide that adequate level of parenting that might need to be there for kids. And not necessarily anybody's fault, given the time constraints, because work hours are so much. And then there's that third proportion to this, is where parents are yelling at young kids 3-4 years old if they're making a mess. But remember, kids are kids. Right? So how do we tackle that with better parenting? So I had that 3-tier breakdown of this. So how do you give kids more time? The appreciation around the sacrifices parents make. And then that whole modes of communication with younger children, adolescents. Yeah, so my first thing would be to discuss the sacrifices parents have made or continue to make for their children, and how sometimes they're kind of overlooked or not valued at that level of value. What would you say about that?
Well, I do believe that parents, especially these days, have to make sacrifices for the well-being of their children.
Yes.
I could tell you for a fact that when myself and my sister were growing up, my parents made a lot of sacrifices. My father had to work. My mother had to work as they were new immigrants. And regardless of the fact that they had to work, they had to still provide for myself, for my sister. And there were tons of sacrifices made from that point of view. There were expenses that had to be made for the children. And because there was a limited income, personal sacrifices had to be made. Who should I get something for? Should I buy it for my children or should I buy it for myself? Well, when you're a parent, as I am fortunate to be, you make that decision. And when you are blessed by God to become a parent,
right,
you understand that you're not the most important person. You have a responsibility towards your child.
Yes.
And you're willing to make the sacrifice. And when you're making the sacrifice, you believe it's a sacrifice.
Right.
You're doing the right thing for your child, for your offspring.
So then I want to interrupt you. So why I agree with you 101%. So our thought process is aligned. But where my question to this is that as parents are providing for their children, because I want to make sure I word this correctly, there's always this time, I grew up, my parents never had time for me. That's why I always go out. They never take me out. Or that narrative, or I want that fancy car and never got it. I remember I saw a case where a young man took his father to court because he sued his father because his father didn't buy him the car that he wanted for his graduation. So when I meant appreciation, that's what I mean. Like, is the hard work, the contribution from parents into like providing education, a roof over your head, the clothes, like, is that overlooked?
I would hope for the most part it's not overlooked. I hope that there is a level of understanding and maturity that from children towards their parents to realize that their parents are, at the end of the day, are human beings. They have to manage their own life. They have to manage work or a career, and they have to manage their household. They have to take care of their children. And at times, the reality is that there perhaps is not as much time for young children at that time. In many situations, you could look at the glass half full or half empty.
Very well.
Did my parents take away valuable time from me and did not give me an upbringing and therefore hence this is what it is? Or did my parents do whatever they could given their circumstances and hence here is where I am?
Right. That's again, one and an unappreciative thought process, one an appreciative thought process.
Absolutely.
Right. Because I hear this often, like, different parenting groups that, we did so much, but the kids don't see it. We did so much. I mean, the narrative is not to control the kids as they get older. So, where they want to get married or, you see that a lot in South Asian communities. I think that shouldn't be the narrative at all. I'm just talking about more of like, our parents never spend time with us, but like a lot of people are not in businesses. So giving kids that time because they're working 6 days a week or some parents working 7 days a week.
Some parents are working 2 jobs,
right? So that's what I mean. Like, if there's anything I can say to the youngsters watching this, like, seeing your parents do this for you, just, give them that little tap on their back and say, we love you. We appreciate what you do for us, because the energy, that drive, it keeps going. But once we turn around and be like, oh, you didn't just do enough.
So I will say, when I was growing up, I do believe I have been guilty in not saying directly to my parents, thank you for what you've done. However, there is in my heart this gratefulness that whatever I am, it's just because of them.
Yes.
And I am in complete agreement with you. If, as a child, you go to your parents, your mom, your dad, maybe even your grandparents,
yes,
and all you say is one thank you, that will go exponentially so far, and that will be the wind underneath their sails.
Right. I think that
underneath their wings, sorry.
Yeah, I should have corrected you on
because you're only pilot and all that rep breathing.
You're English 101, right? That's exactly what you said is exactly what I wanted to hear. That one hug, in Hindi say jadoo ki jappi.
One hug makes a big difference. I hope my kids are watching this one too.
Nice. No, hey, listen, I feel like you've done a lot for your kids as well, and they're very sweet.
I've been very fortunate.
And I feel like I'm very blessed as well.
Absolutely. You're blessed the day you have children.
Yes.
And as a parent, it is your duty to do the best that you possibly can.
Yes.
And when you're fulfilling your duty, and as Lord Shri Krishna says, it's your job to do your duty.
Yes.
Do not worry about anything else.
Yes, right. So do your deed and let the fruits, fall in place.
And they will, and they shall.
Well said. And then the second tier to this is parents neglecting kids, yelling at kids. Totally different topic, like being devil's advocate here. One part is appreciation. The other part is I see parents like, 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds in parks or in the malls, oh, stop it. And they're yelling at their kids on top of their lungs. And if anything, I think that's enclosing a child. Like the child, you're putting fear in the child. Like if the child can react like an adult, they wouldn't be a child. Especially at that age, that it's a tender age, right? And I think, like, what can parents do, because you're from the medical field, like, what can parents do to change their modes of communication at that age with their kids? Because, again, Indian parents have a different approach. South Asian parents have a different approach. And maybe it was different 30, 40 years ago when it worked. But today with, social media and so much digitization, I feel there needs to be better approaches to tackling children that are not necessarily not listening in the moment or throwing tantrums. What do you think on this?
I'm of the mindset that in order to discipline your child, you must be extremely calm and collected and have that in your mind that a child is a child. However, where the examples that you are referring to,
yes,
in my estimation, I am hoping at least that this is not a direct indication that someone is being mean to their child and they're not understanding that the child which is making the error or is putting up a tantrum can understand at the same level as an adult. I believe what you're seeing, especially these days, is the frustration the parent has with everything external, not related to what the child is doing. And but because the child cannot answer back, they're venting on the child.
But that's
which is not right.
That's what I mean.
But that requires taking a step back and having the sanity to say, listen, this situation is totally different from what is causing irritation to me at this particular moment. It's not what my child is doing. It's rather all the other things which have happened to me during the day or during the week. I cannot take it out here. However, that requires being extremely cognizant of the situation,
right?
Being cognizant of yourself, having a true dialogue with yourself in a very short period of time. Unfortunately, I don't believe people in society have that patience these days.
Because you wouldn't yell at your boss. You wouldn't yell at the police officer down the street. You wouldn't yell
well, this is because there's repercussions there. With your child, there's no repercussions.
There is.
In your
damaging you're creating.
In your opinion, that the police officer or the person in authority is going to set you straight at the moment. And in your mind, you're thinking, what's this child going to do?
So I studied early childhood in parts of my educational career. And that's why, I work with a lot with the youth and coach a lot of youth. And this is trauma. Like, you're setting up trauma for these young souls.
I'm in complete agreement with you. I am not disagreeing with you in any way, shape, or form. However, I do understand that there's been a lot of parents, not on purpose.
Yes.
Not by their own volition.
Yes.
They perhaps inadvertently have taken out frustrations that they have garnered from other moments in their life, moments in their day, on their child in error. And I'm hoping that when their mind gets a bit cooler and they go home or they retreat and they think about what just happened, that they realize they made a mistake. And when you realize you make a mistake, if you're wise enough, you just don't make it again.
I don't know. The part of me really want to touch this topic today because I see two folds, right? Like, there's one fold here, and the one fold is not appreciating their hard work, and the other fold is, to using your kids as like a punching bag vocally. If not, it's because people think, I don't say nothing to my kids, but verbal abuse is just as bad as physical abuse. And I see it as that form because when I see parents yelling at their kids,
Are you talking about yelling as a one-off, or are you talking about yelling as a consistent way and methodology of disciplining your child?
I mean, I don't see, like, those parents that I see yelling at their kids in a mall. I don't see them consistently. Like, it might be a one-off when you watch.
Now, what you're seeing is that particular moment. You do not know the entire context of the situation.
But
everything has a context.
I agree.
And I'm not.
I agree with you, but
But like advocating for a parent to yell at their child. I'm not saying.
But if we can control
Context means a lot.
but if we can control our emotions with our boss, if we can control our emotion with the border security officer, police officers, or whoever may be a person of authority, then why can't we control ourselves with our kids?
These days, people can't even control their emotions with the people you mentioned right now.
I know.
This is the reality of today.
You're not sure like me be a good devil's advocate here. Do I have to start talking about how much your watch is? No, but you get the gist, though.
I get the gist of what you're saying. I'm an optimistic person.
Yes, I know.
I look at the good in everybody,
Yes.
and I don't like to point out the bad all the time. And I'm hoping, and I believe I'm correct in saying that sometimes in error, parents do use methods of disciplining their children, which can, in the long term, and perhaps even do cause psychological traumatic effects. Is it right? Absolutely not. But if, God forbid, an error like that has been made once in a blue moon, learn from that error, retract, because love, understanding, and explaining values to your children, even at a young, tender age, will go a long way and will cover that traumatic moment of disciplining your child by yelling at them.
Well said. Now, here's my last tier to this. So, how does perfect parenting look like?
I don't believe there's anything as perfect parenting.
Or a model of parenting, for better sake.
You do the best you possibly can given your circumstances for your children. If your circumstances allow you to do certain things, which are that's the best you could do, you are a perfect parent. If, however, your circumstances allow you to do a lot better for your child, and you choose not to do it for your selfish reasons, then you have not reached that benchmark of perfection. There is no such thing as perfection. There's only the pursuit of it.
So then if you had to look at the camera, straight in the eyes, and what would you say to parents and what would you say to kids when it comes to a model of parenting or childhood or respecting parents for all the things they do for the kids and continue to do for the kids? So if you had to answer that in 2 tiers, a message for kids and a message for parents, in appreciation for both, and in terms of the best possible way to approach parenting, what would you have to say to that?
I am both a son and a father.
Right.
I will say that as a child, I've tried my best to be a good human being, to live up to the values that my parents taught me, to respect them.
Yes.
Have I been perfect? No. Have I made errors? No. But my spirit, nonetheless, has been that striving to be a good son. Sometimes when my father was alive, he saw it. My mother, she's alive. Thank God she sees it. But it's the spirit of trying to be a good son, which I hope and I believe that my parents and all parents can see in their children. And for my children, I've tried to be the best father. Have I always been the best father? No. I too have made errors because I am a human being. But my spirit, nonetheless, is that you try, you make an error, you try again, and hopefully this bond grows deeper with time. That's all I really have to say.
Right. So, and on that note, I leave that with parents too, that, hey, for young kids, your parents are working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs to make ends meet. And, it's always, Dad, was your day at work okay? Mom, was your day at work okay? How are things going? Sometimes that little push and a little ask will put them on cloud 9. And sometimes that's all parents need, that what they're doing all this for is looking beautiful, is looking full on their plate. the biggest reward is that reward from the happiness from the children when they can validate that. And for kids, to parents, they're kids. If you can yell at them and scold them, and that's going to make your kids perfect, then you have the wrong approach, because you're letting a child close up. You're not letting their personality be. They'll be scared to approach the world. Every time they do something wrong, they're going to think that they're going to get yelled at, or rather than somebody just sitting them down and being like, hey, it's okay. You can make mistakes. You'll learn from these mistakes. You'll grow as an individual, because nobody's perfect. And I think this two-tier approach with parents and kids could just make for a better world. And I truly believe that. And that's why I really wanted to touch this topic, because I feel like this is the most important combination of a relationship that exists in today's world. And when we talk about spirituality and the connect, which I also want to talk about with you, and then that might be a segue into our next podcast, that the greatest way of spirituality, they say parents are a form of God, but so are kids.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So that connect is so important. So that's my 2 cents, guys. If I hope I didn't offend anybody, but I truly felt what I strongly feel for what I'm saying. So I wanted to really have this topic today. I just don't like to see animosity in families, because both are doing their fair share.
Absolutely. It's about realization of who is doing what.
Yes.
And stepping back and looking at any situation from the perspective of another, whether it's a parent, whether it's a child, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a friend, whether it's a colleague. Sometimes get out of your own shoes.
That's it. It really, what you just did, that what you said in the end is so important, that you got to realize that those shoes, are they easy to fill or not? Because when you're kids for a reason, right? Like, let them grow up, let them do. Kids are the ones that are going to make mistakes. And if you take that away from the beauty is in those mistakes. They're careless. They see this world with, everybody is an equal. There is no judgment. And thanks to the parenting, they grow up stronger. So just be around them, be that support system. And kids that are older, teenagers, young adults, appreciate what your parents have done, because in today's world, everybody needs that little bit of appreciation to be like, thank you.
And I also believe for parents of teenagers,
yes,
that you've got to understand that at that age,
yes,
when you are transitioning from a child to adulthood,
yes,
there's a lot of hormones.
Yeah,
there's a lot of opinions given from your friends.
Yes.
All of a sudden, your parents don't look like the superheroes they were when you were growing up, because you begin to see them as human beings. That's a very tender age and a very critical moment in the parent-child relationship. And at that time is when super cool heads should prevail, especially from the parent perspective, to understand that my child, he or she is growing his or her wings, and there are going to be some feathers which will be ruffled.
Right.
But they will come around. They always do.
Perfect. Well said. With that being said, I want to thank you, Dr. Sabharwal.
Thank you.
I think our podcast has done really well.
Thanks to your topics.
No, it's thanks to your company. I think, if I brought up topics, but you didn't converse with me, go deep into discussion with me, I think that appreciation wouldn't exist. And I think people really love what we've been saying. And honestly, if you guys feel there's a certain topic that we should address, whether it be political, whether it be a financial topic, reach out to us, drop the team a message, and we'll love to discuss it. In about 2 weeks from now, we're going to have guests coming onto our podcast, and we'll give you a week heads up of to who those guests are. If you want to throw questions for the guests too, go for it. We'll bring artists, we'll bring politicians, we'll bring sports players, we'll bring bankers, anything, like anybody that can add weightage to the questions you guys may have, or to the knowledge that you guys may want to hear about. So I will leave it at that. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Dr. Wong. Thank you. And with that, we'll take off.